The morning sky above Tahari Prime turned red as 12 massive warships dropped out of hyperspace. Hana looked up from her work at the shield generator station and felt her blood turn cold. The ships were huge, dark metal beasts covered in weapons and armor. She had never seen anything like them before. Alert! All colonists report to emergency stations. The voice of Taman, the colony administrator, echoed across the settlement through the communication system. His voice shook with fear. Hana ran toward the main control building. Around her, other Villani colonists were doing the same. Their blue skin looked pale with terror. The Villani were a peaceful people who had never fought a war. They came to this planet to mine rare crystals and grow food, not to fight battles. Inside the control room, Taman stood at the main screen. His hands moved quickly over the controls as he tried to contact the ships above. Unknown vessels, this is Tahari Prime Colony. Please identify yourselves and state your purpose. The answer came back in a harsh, cold voice. This is Warlord Thex of the Krathan Empire. You will surrender your colony and give us all your terraforming technology. You have 1 hour to decide. Hana's heart sank. She knew about the Krathan Empire. They were a violent race that conquered other planets and took what they wanted. They showed no mercy to anyone who stood in their way. We are a peaceful colony, Taman replied. We have no weapons and no military. Please leave us alone, Warlord. Thex laughed. It was an ugly sound. Then this will be easy. Give us what we want or we will take it from your dead bodies. The communication ended. Taman turned to face the room full of scared colonists. Everyone, we need to activate the emergency shields. Hana, can you get the generators running at full power? Hana nodded and ran to her station. The shield generators were old but still worked. They could protect the colony from small attacks, but she wasn't sure they could stop 12 warships. Her fingers flew over the controls as she brought the shields online. Outside, the Krathan ships moved into position around the planet. They looked like hungry wolves surrounding a helpless sheep. The largest ship, Warlord Thex's flagship, moved directly above the colony. Taman called Jiho from the communications station. I'm sending out distress signals to the Galactic Council. Maybe they can send help. How long would it take for help to arrive? Taman asked. Jiho's face was grim. The nearest council fleet is 3 weeks away. Maybe more, 3 weeks. Hana knew they didn't have 3 weeks. They probably didn't have 3 hours. The first attack came without warning. Bright red energy beams shot down from the Krathan ships and hit the colony's shields. The protective barrier flashed and sparked as it absorbed the impact. Hana watched her control screens as the shield power dropped from 100% to 90% in seconds. They're testing our defenses, she called out. The shields are holding, but not for long. More energy beams rained down from above. The colonists could hear the weapons firing even through the thick walls of their buildings. Children cried as their parents held them close. The elderly Villani whispered prayers to their ancient gods. Taman activated the colony-wide communication system. All colonists, please move to the underground shelters immediately. Take only what you need. This is not a drill. Families grabbed their most important belongings and ran toward the shelter entrances. The tunnels had been built into the rock beneath the colony for emergencies like this. They were deep and strong, but Hana wondered if even they would be enough to protect everyone. Shield power at 70%, Hana reported as another wave of attacks hit them. The generators were working as hard as they could, but the Krathan weapons were too powerful. Minho, a young mechanic, ran into the control room. Taman, some of the colonists are trying to reach the evacuation ships at the spaceport. The Krathan are shooting at them. Through the windows, they could see bright flashes of light as Krathan fighters attacked any ship that tried to leave the planet. Several small vessels exploded in the sky, their burning remains falling back to the surface. Tell everyone to stay in the shelters, Taman ordered. No one leaves the planet until we find another way. Hana's control board flashed red. Shield power at 50%. The generators are overheating. I don't know how much longer they can last. The Krathan ships moved closer to the planet. Now they could see ground troops being loaded into landing craft. Warlord Thex was preparing for the final attack. Sir, Jiho called from his station. I'm getting a response to our distress signal. The Galactic Council? Taman asked hopefully. No, sir. It's strange. The signal is very weak and far away. I can barely make it out. Another massive attack hit the shields. This time the protective barrier flickered and went out for several seconds before coming back online. When it did, it was much weaker than before. 30% shield power, Hana reported. We have maybe an hour before complete failure. Taman closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them, his face was determined. Send a message to Warlord Thex. Tell him I want to negotiate. Taman, no, Hana protested. You know he can't be trusted. I have to try. Maybe I can buy us some time. The communication screen flickered to life, showing the ugly face of Warlord Thex. His skin was gray and covered in scars. His eyes were small and cruel. So you want to surrender? The Krathan leader asked. I want to make a deal, Taman replied. Let the colonists evacuate safely. In return, I will give you all our terraforming data and surrender myself as your prisoner. Warlord Thex considered this. You have spirit, little Villani, very well. You have 2 hours to prepare your people for evacuation. But if you try to trick me, I will kill every one of them slowly. The communication ended. Taman turned to the others. You heard him. We have 2 hours. Get everyone ready to leave. As the colonists prepared for evacuation, Hana stayed at her post, keeping the failing shields running. She knew Warlord Thex was lying. He had no intention of letting anyone leave alive. But what choice did they have? High above them, the Krathan ships waited like vultures. Soon, very soon, Tehari Prime would fall. But in the deep darkness of space, something was moving toward them. Something that would change everything. The 2 hours passed too quickly. Hana watched the shield power drop to 12% as families hugged each other goodbye in the underground shelters. Everyone knew that Warlord Thex would not keep his promise, but they had no choice but to hope. Taman stood in the main control room, looking older than his years. The weight of every life in the colony pressed down on his shoulders. Through the thick windows, he could see Krathan landing ships approaching the surface like deadly insects. Sir, the first evacuation ship is ready to launch, Jiho reported from his communications station. His voice was quiet and sad. Tell them to wait, Taman replied. Let me talk to Thex first. The main screen flickered to life, showing the Krathan warlord's cruel face. Behind him, Taman could see Krathan soldiers preparing their weapons. Time is up, little administrator, Warlord Thex said with an evil smile. Are you ready to surrender? The colonists are preparing to board the evacuation ships, Taman replied. I will come aboard your ship as soon as they are safely away from the planet. Warlord Thex laughed. Oh, I have changed my mind about that deal. I think I will keep your technology and your people. My scientists need test subjects for their experiments. Taman's heart turned to ice. You gave me your word. Words are cheap, the Krathan leader replied. Your people will make good slaves. The strong ones will work in our mines. The weak ones will feed our war beasts. The communication ended. Around the control room, the remaining colonists stared at each other in horror. They had all heard the conversation. What do we do now? Whispered Hana. Her hands shook as she tried to keep the failing shield stable. Before Taman could answer, Minho burst into the room. The young mechanic's eyes were wide with excitement and confusion. Sir, you need to see this. There's something on the deep space sensors. What kind of something? Taman asked. A ship. A big one. Bigger than anything I've ever seen. It's moving through hyperspace toward our system. Jiho quickly checked his own sensors. He's right. The energy signature is massive, but it doesn't match any ship in our databases. It's not Galactic Council, and it's definitely not Krathan. Hana felt a tiny spark of hope in her chest. Could it be another species coming to help us? I don't know, Taman said. How long until it arrives? Minho studied his readings. At current speed. Maybe 6 hours? But sir, the shields won't last that long. As if to prove his point, another wave of Krathan weapons fire hit the colony. The shields flickered and dropped to 8%. Sparks flew from Hana's control panel as the generator struggled to keep working. The shield generators are failing, Hana shouted over the noise. I can't keep them stable much longer. Outside, the first Krathan landing ships touched down near the colony. Hundreds of gray-skinned soldiers poured out, carrying weapons that glowed with deadly energy. They moved toward the buildings like a swarm of ants. Commander Vex, the leader of the Krathan ground forces, spoke into his communicator. Warlord Thex, we have landed successfully. The colony will be ours within the hour. Good, came the reply. Take prisoners, but don't be gentle about it. I want these creatures to know the price of defying the Krathan Empire. Inside the control room, Taman made a desperate decision. Jiho, boost the distress signal to maximum power. Send it toward that unknown ship. Sir, if I do that, it will drain what's left of our power. The shields will fail completely. Do it anyway. It's our only chance. Jiho's fingers flew over his controls. The distress signal grew stronger and stronger, reaching far out into space. Every bit of power from the colony's generators went into that one desperate cry for help. The shields vanished. The colony was now completely defenseless. Krathan soldiers reached the outer buildings and began breaking down doors. The colonists in the underground shelters could hear the sound of heavy boots and harsh voices above them. Children cried as their parents tried to keep them quiet. They're inside the colony, Minho reported. The Krathan are searching every building. Hana tried to restart the shield generators, but it was no use. The power systems were completely drained. I'm sorry, Taman. There's nothing more I can do. Taman put his hand on her shoulder. You did your best. We all did. Heavy footsteps echoed in the hallway outside the control room. The Krathan soldiers were getting closer. Soon they would break down the door and capture everyone inside. Sir, Jiho said quietly. The unknown ship just changed course. It's heading directly for our system now. How long? Taman asked. 2 hours. Maybe less, 2 hours. They needed to survive for 2 more hours. But as the sound of Krathan weapons fire grew louder outside, Taman knew they didn't have 2 minutes, let alone 2 hours. The door to the control room exploded inward. Krathan soldiers in heavy armor stormed inside, their weapons pointed at the small group of Villani. Commander Vex walked in behind them, his scarred face twisted with satisfaction. So these are the brave defenders of Tehari Prime, he said mockingly. How pathetic. Taman stepped forward, placing himself between the soldiers and his people. I am the colony administrator. These others are just workers. Let them go. Commander Vex struck Taman across the face with the back of his hand. The Villani leader fell to the floor, blood running from his nose. You will speak when spoken to, slave, the Krathan commander snarled. Take them to the holding pens with the others. As the soldiers grabbed them, Hana caught sight of Jiho's sensor display one last time. The unknown ship was still coming, moving faster now. Its energy signature was unlike anything she had ever seen, but it was too late. The Krathan had won. The colonists were dragged outside into the bright sunlight. All around them, their beautiful settlement was burning. Krathan soldiers loaded families into metal cages like animals. The air was filled with smoke and the sound of crying. Warlord Thex's ship landed in the colony's central square. The massive vessel crushed several buildings as it touched down. The warlord himself walked down the landing ramp surrounded by his personal guards. Bring me the administrator, he commanded. Taman was pushed forward, his hands bound behind his back. His face was swollen and bruised, but his eyes still held defiance. Look around you, Warlord Thex said. This is what happens to those who refuse the Krathan Empire. Your people are now our slaves. Your planet is now our mining world. And you will watch as we destroy everything you built here. Taman said nothing. He just stared at the Krathan leader with hatred in his eyes. In the distance, hidden among the burning buildings, Minho watched from a broken window. He had escaped capture and was hiding with a few other colonists. His small sensor device showed that the unknown ship was getting closer, much closer. Whoever you are, he whispered to the stars, please hurry. Far above, Warlord Thex's flagship detected the approaching vessel on their long-range sensors. The Krathan sensor officer reported to his commander with confusion in his voice. Sir, we have an unknown contact approaching the system. It's enormous. What species? The commander asked. Unknown, sir. The ship design doesn't match anything in our databases. The commander smiled. Probably some merchant vessel that stumbled into our battle. Send a message telling them to leave immediately, or we will destroy them. But deep in space, something very different was approaching Tehari Prime. Something that would teach the Krathan Empire the true meaning of fear. The prison cages were cold and dark. Hana sat pressed against the metal bars with dozens of other colonists, listening to the sounds of destruction outside. The Krathan soldiers were tearing apart everything the Villani had built, looking for valuable technology and materials. Taman was in a separate cage nearby. His face was badly bruised from the beating the soldiers had given him. Every few minutes, a Krathan guard would hit the bars with his weapon just to make the prisoners jump. How much longer do you think we have? Whispered an elderly Villani woman named Sumin. I don't know, Hana replied quietly. But Jiho saw something on the sensors before they captured us. A ship was coming toward our system. What kind of ship? Asked Sumin. We don't know. It wasn't in any of our databases. Above them, Warlord Thex stood on the bridge of his flagship watching his soldiers work. Everything was going according to plan. Soon he would have all the Villani terraforming secrets, and the Krathan Empire would be able to turn dead worlds into garden planets. "Sir," called his sensor officer, "that unknown ship is still approaching. It will reach the edge of our system in 30 minutes. Have you identified it yet?" Warlord Thex asked. "No, sir. The energy signature is strange. The ship appears to be much larger than our flagship, but that seems impossible." Warlord Thex frowned. In all his years of conquest, he had never encountered a ship larger than his own. His flagship was over 1 kilometer long and carried enough weapons to destroy entire cities. "Send a warning message to the approaching vessel," he ordered. "Tell them this system is under Krathan control and they must leave immediately." The communications officer sent the message and waited for a reply. When it came, the voice was unlike anything the Krathan had ever heard. It was calm, cold, and completely without fear. "This is Captain Deho of the United Earthship Incheon's Wrath. We received a distress call from this system. Identify yourself and explain your actions against the civilian population." The bridge fell silent. None of the Krathan had ever heard of Earth or humans before. Warlord Thex's eyes narrowed with suspicion and anger. "I am Warlord Thex of the Krathan Empire. This planet is now our territory. You will leave this system immediately or be destroyed." There was a pause before the human voice replied. "Negative. You have 60 seconds to cease all hostile actions and withdraw your forces from this system." Warlord Thex burst into laughter. Several of his officers joined in. The idea that a single unknown ship would dare threaten the entire Krathan fleet was the most ridiculous thing they had ever heard. "You must be insane," Warlord Thex replied. "I have 12 warships. You have one. Surrender now and I might let you live as my slave." The human voice remained calm. "You have been warned. Any further hostile action will be met with overwhelming force." "Overwhelming force?" Warlord Thex sneered. "From one ship? I think not." He turned to his weapons officer. "Destroy that vessel. Show them what happens when someone challenges the Krathan Empire." Down in the prison cages, the colonists had heard everything through the communication speakers. Hana felt her heart racing. Someone had come in response to their distress call, but one ship against 12 seemed like an impossible fight. "Who are these humans?" whispered Taman from his cage. "I've never heard of them," Hana replied. "But they don't sound afraid." The Krathan fleet began moving into attack formation. The flagship and 5 other warships turned toward the edge of the system, where the unknown vessel was approaching. The remaining 6 ships stayed in orbit around Tahari Prime to guard their prize. "Sir," reported the sensor officer, "the unknown ship just dropped out of hyperspace at the system's edge." "Show me," Warlord Thex commanded. The main screen displayed the incoming vessel, and for the first time in his life, Warlord Thex felt a cold chill of fear. The ship was enormous, easily twice the size of his flagship. Its hull was dark gray metal covered in scars and weapons. It looked like it had been through 1,000 battles and won them all. "Impossible," breathed the tactical officer. "How did they build something so large?" But the most frightening thing about the human ship was not its size. It was the way it moved. Instead of trying to avoid the Krathan fleet or prepare defensive positions, it was flying directly toward them at full speed. "They're not slowing down," reported the helmsman. "They're on a direct collision course with our formation." "Are they trying to ram us?" asked the weapons officer. "If they are, they're insane," Warlord Thex replied. But his voice was no longer confident. The UES Incheon's Wrath continued its charge toward the Krathan fleet. On its bridge, Captain Deho stood calmly at his command station, watching the enemy ships on his displays. His crew worked silently around him, preparing for battle. "Range to enemy fleet?" he asked. 2 million kilometers and closing," replied Lieutenant Soyon from the tactical station. "They're moving to surround us." "Let them come," Captain Deho said. "Chief Junho, are all systems ready?" "Yes, sir," came the reply from the engineering station. "All weapons charged, shields at maximum, armor plating sealed. Dr. Rena, you should go to the medical bay. This is going to get rough." The ship's xenobiologist nodded and left the bridge. She had seen human ships in action before and knew what was coming. "Sir," Lieutenant Soyon reported, "the enemy is opening fire." Energy beams from 6 Krathan warships lanced out across space toward the human dreadnought. The weapons were powerful enough to punch through a mountain, but when they hit the Incheon's Wrath, they barely left scorch marks on its armor. The Krathen crews stared in disbelief at their sensor readings. Their most powerful weapons had done almost no damage to the human ship. How is that possible? Warlord Thex demanded. Our weapons should have crippled them. Unknown, sir, replied the tactical officer. Their armor appears to be made of materials we've never seen before. The Anyo, Kuizinchan's wrath reached weapons range and opened fire. What happened next changed everything. The Krathen thought they knew about space warfare. Beams of pure plasma erupted from the human ship's main batteries. The energy was so intense it lit up space like a star. The first Krathen warship to be hit simply disappeared in a ball of fire. Impossible, screamed Warlord Thex. No weapon can be that powerful. A second Krathen ship exploded as the human vessel's guns found their target. Then a third. The remaining ships scattered, trying to escape the deadly fire. But the human ship was faster than anything they had ever seen. Fighter craft launched from the Inchan's wrath like angry wasps. They were small but incredibly fast, and their weapons cut through Krathen shields like they were made of paper. Down on Tehari Prime, the colonists in their cages could see the battle through the prison camp's windows. Bright flashes of light filled the sky as ships exploded high above. They're winning, Hana whispered in amazement. One ship is beating the entire Krathen fleet. Minho, still hiding in the ruins of the colony, watched through his sensor device as the impossible happened. The humans were not just fighting the Krathen, they were destroying them. On the bridge of his flagship, Warlord Thex watched his fleet die. In less than an hour, he had lost 6 ships. The human vessel seemed unstoppable. All ships retreat to the planet, he ordered. Use the civilian prisoners as shields. But as his remaining ships tried to escape, Captain Deho's voice came over the communication system one more time. This is your final warning. Warlord Thex, surrender now and release all prisoners, or I will destroy every ship in your fleet. For the first time in his life, Warlord Thex was truly afraid. These humans fought like demons, and their technology was beyond anything he had imagined. But he was Krathen, and Krathen never surrendered. Never. He screamed into the communicator. I would rather die than surrender to you. So be it, came the calm reply. The UES Inchan's wrath turned toward Tehari Prime, and Warlord Thex knew his empire had just made its greatest enemy. The remaining 6 Krathen warships formed a defensive circle around Tehari Prime. Warlord Thex knew he was trapped, but he had one advantage left, the Vellani prisoners. He would use them as human shields. Open a channel to that human ship, he ordered. Captain Deho appeared on the main screen, his face calm, but his eyes burning with anger. Behind him, the bridge of the Inchan's wrath hummed with quiet efficiency. I see you've decided to hide behind innocent civilians, Captain Deho said. How very brave of you, Warlord Thex snarled. Come any closer and I will execute every prisoner. You cannot save them if they are dead. You're right, Captain Deho replied. I can't save the dead, but I can make sure you join them. The communication ended. On his bridge, Captain Deho turned to his crew. Lieutenant Soyon, what's the status of the prisoners? Sensors show approximately 800 Vellani being held in the main prison compound near the colony center, she replied. There are also scattered groups hiding throughout the settlement. Chief Junho, can you get a transporter lock on the prisoners through the Krathen shields? Negative, sir. Their shield generators are creating too much interference. We'd need to take out the shields first. Captain Deho studied the tactical display. The Krathen had positioned their ships well. Any direct attack would give them time to kill the prisoners before he could save them. Pilot Nari, are your fighters ready for precision strikes? Yes, sir, came the reply from the fighter bay. My squadron is loaded and ready to launch. Good. Here's what we're going to do. The plan was dangerous and required perfect timing, but it was their only chance to save the colonists. Minutes later, 12 human fighters launched from the Inchan's wrath. They were sleek, fast ships that looked more like deadly birds than spacecraft. Pilot Nari led them in a wide circle around the planet, staying just outside the range of Krathen sensors. All fighters, this is lead, Nari spoke into her communicator. Remember, we need to hit all 6 shield generators at exactly the same time. If even one ship maintains shields, the prisoners will die. Down in the prison compound, Hana pressed her face against the bars of her cage. The battle in space had stopped, and she could see Krathen guards moving nervously around the camp. They knew something was happening, but they didn't know what. Taman caught her eye from his nearby cage. Whatever happens, he whispered, stay strong. Help is coming. Commander Vex, the Krathen ground forces leader, stood near the prison cages with his weapon ready. He had orders to kill all the prisoners the moment the human ship attacked. High above, Warlord Thex watched his sensors for any sign of movement from the enemy vessel. "Where are they?" he muttered. "What are they waiting for?" His answer came in the form of 12 streaks of light that appeared from behind the planet's moon. The human fighters moved faster than anything the Krathen had ever seen. They split into 6 groups of 2, each pair targeting one of the warships. "Fighters," screamed the tactical officer. "They came from the moon's shadow. Shoot them down," Warlord Thex ordered. Krathen weapons fire filled the space around the planet, but the human fighters were too fast and too small. They danced between the energy beams like they were playing a game. Nari's fighter dove toward the nearest Krathen ship, her wingman close behind. "Target the shield generator on the port side," she called. "Hit it on my mark." The 2 fighters opened fire together. Their weapons were small compared to the main ship's guns, but they were accurate. The shield generator exploded in a shower of sparks. Around the planet, the other fighter pairs did the same thing. Within seconds, all 6 Krathen ships had lost their shields. "Now!" Captain Deho commanded from the Inchun's Wrath. The massive human dreadnought's transporter beams reached down to the planet's surface. In flashes of blue light, the Vallani prisoners vanished from their cages and appeared in the safety of the human ship's cargo bays. Hana felt a strange, tingling sensation, and suddenly she was standing in a huge metal room filled with other confused colonists. Strange creatures in blue and gray uniforms were moving among them, offering water and medical care. These had to be humans. They looked similar to Vallani, but with different colored skin and hair. Their eyes held kindness, not cruelty. "Welcome aboard the UES Inchun's Wrath," said one of the humans in accented but understandable Vallani. "You're safe now." Back on the planet, Commander Vex stared at the empty cages in disbelief. The prisoners had simply vanished. How was that possible? His answer came in the form of strange soldiers appearing all around the prison compound. They wore heavy armor and carried weapons that hummed with energy. These were human Marines led by Sergeant Quan. "Krathen forces, you are surrounded," Sergeant Quan announced. "Drop your weapons and surrender." Commander Vex raised his rifle, but before he could fire, a human weapon beam stunned him unconscious. The other Krathen soldiers found themselves facing opponents who were faster, better armed, and much more skilled in combat. In space, the real battle was just beginning. With their shields down and their prisoners safe, the 6 Krathen warships were helpless against the Inchun's Wrath. "Target their weapons and engines," Captain Deho ordered. "I want them disabled, not destroyed. We need prisoners for questioning." Master Chief Hyon, the ship's chief gunner, smiled grimly as he targeted the enemy vessels. "With pleasure, sir." The human ship's weapons fired with surgical precision. Instead of destroying the Krathen ships, they carefully removed their ability to fight or flee. Weapons turrets exploded. Engine sections went dark. One by one, the mighty Krathen warships became floating scrap metal. Only Warlord Thex's flagship still had some fight left in it. In desperation, the Krathen leader ordered his ship to ram the human dreadnought. "If I'm going to die," he screamed, "I'm taking you with me." His ship accelerated toward the Inchun's Wrath, but Captain Deho was ready for this move. "Sergeant Quan, are your boarding teams ready?" he asked. "Standing by, sir," came the reply. "Launch boarding pods. Take that ship before it can reach us." Small armored pods shot out from the human vessel and attached themselves to the Krathen flagship's hull. Human Marines cut through the metal and poured into the enemy ship's corridors. What followed was not really a battle. The Krathen soldiers were tough and mean, but they had never faced opponents like human Marines. The humans moved through the ship like ghosts, appearing where they were least expected and disappearing before the enemy could react. Within an hour, Sergeant Quan stood on the bridge of the Krathen flagship. His weapon pointed at Warlord Thex's head. "Your ship is captured," he announced. "Your fleet is destroyed. Your invasion is over." Warlord Thex looked around at his defeated crew. Everything he had built, everything he had conquered was gone. "Destroyed by a single human ship, what are you?" he whispered. Sergeant Quan's reply would be remembered by every Krathen who heard it. "We're human, and we protect those who cannot protect themselves." On the bridge of the Inchun's Wrath, Captain Deho opened a communication channel to the planet below. His words reached every surviving Vallani on Tehari Prime. "Attention colonists of Tehari Prime. This is Captain Deho of the United Earth ship Inchin's Wrath. The Krathan invasion has been stopped. Your people are safe. We're sending medical teams and engineers to help rebuild your colony. In the cargo bay, Hana listened to the announcement with tears in her eyes. Around her, other colonists were crying too. But these were tears of joy, not sorrow. They had been saved by creatures they had never heard of. From a place called Earth, the humans had risked their lives for complete strangers asking for nothing in return. Why? Hana asked Dr. Rena, the human doctor who was treating her injuries. Why did you help us? You don't even know us, Dr. Rena smiled gently. Because it was the right thing to do. That's what humans do. As the UES Inchin's Wrath settled into orbit around Tahari Prime, the colonists began to understand that their galaxy had just changed forever. Earth had arrived, and with it came a new kind of hope. The age of human protection had begun. 3 days after the battle, Tahari Prime looked like a different world. Where there had been burning ruins, human engineering teams were building new structures. Where there had been fear and despair, there was now hope and friendship. Hana stood next to Chief Engineer Junho, watching as human machines cleared away the debris from the old colony center. The humans worked with incredible efficiency, but they also asked the Vallani for advice on every decision. We want to rebuild your home the way you want it, Junho explained in his careful Vallani. This is your world, not ours. But you saved us, Hana replied. You could take whatever you wanted. Junho looked shocked. Take from you? After what you've been through? What kind of people do you think we are? Hana smiled. She was beginning to understand exactly what kind of people humans were. Across the settlement, Taman was meeting with Dr. Rena in the temporary medical center. His bruises were healing well, but she was more interested in learning about Vallani culture and their amazing terraforming technology. Your people can turn dead rocks into garden worlds, Dr. Rena said with wonder. How do you do it? It's not magic, Taman explained. We use special bacteria and plants that can survive in harsh conditions. Over time, they change the atmosphere and soil. Incredible. And you share this technology freely with other species? Of course. Why would we keep it to ourselves? The galaxy has room for everyone. Dr. Rena nodded thoughtfully. This was exactly the kind of attitude that had impressed Captain Deho about the Vallani. They were a genuinely peaceful people who wanted to help others. In the rebuilt communications center, Jiho was working with Lieutenant Soyan to send messages across the galaxy. Word of the human victory over the Krathan fleet was spreading quickly. The Galactic Council wants to meet with your captain, Jiho reported. They've never heard of humans before, but they're very interested in talking to us. Captain Deho is preparing for those meetings, Lieutenant Soyan replied. But first, he wants to make sure your colony is safe and rebuilt. Minho, who had become fascinated with human technology, was helping Sergeant Kwan's Marines clean up the last of the Krathan equipment. The young mechanic could hardly believe how advanced human tools were. Your weapons are incredible, he said to one of the Marines. But you use them to protect us, not to conquer us. That's what weapons are for, the Marine replied. Protecting people who need help. The Krathan use their weapons to hurt and steal. That's why we stopped them. It was such a simple answer, but it explained everything about the difference between humans and Krathan. On the bridge of the UES Inchin's Wrath, Captain Deho was meeting with his senior officers. In 3 days, they had received over 50 messages from different species across the galaxy. Everyone wanted to know about the mysterious humans who had defeated an entire Krathan fleet. Sir, Lieutenant Soyan reported, Earth Command is sending Ambassador Yunji with a full diplomatic fleet. They should arrive within the week. Good, Captain Deho replied. The galaxy needs to understand that humanity is here to help, not to conquer. What about the Krathan Empire? Asked Dr. Rena. They'll want revenge for what we did to their fleet. Captain Deho's expression grew hard. Let them come. They'll learn the same lesson as Warlord Thex. In the ship's brig, Warlord Thex sat in his cell staring at the walls. The mighty Krathan leader who had conquered dozens of worlds was now a prisoner of a species he had never heard of just a week ago. A human guard brought him his daily meal. The food was simple but healthy, much better than what Krathan prisoners usually received. Why do you treat me so well? Warlord Thex asked. I tried to destroy your friends, the guard shrugged. Because treating prisoners badly makes us no better than you. You should have killed me when you had the chance. My empire will come for you. Maybe, the guard replied. But when they do, they'll find us ready. After the guard left, Warlord Thex thought about the humans' words. These strange creatures were nothing like any species he had encountered before. They were strong enough to defeat his fleet, but gentle enough to care for their enemies. They had technology that seemed like magic, but they used it to build rather than destroy. For the first time, Warlord Thex began to wonder if the Krathan Empire had been wrong about everything. Down on the planet, the Villani were learning more about their rescuers every day. The humans came from a small blue world far from the galaxy's center. They had only recently developed faster-than-light travel, and were exploring the galaxy for the first time. You're so new to space travel, Elder Baum, the oldest Villani in the colony, said to Captain Deho during a dinner meeting. Yet your technology is more advanced than species that have been traveling the stars for thousands of years. Humans are good at learning quickly, Captain Deho replied. Especially when we need to defend ourselves or others. But why did you choose to help us? You could have ignored our distress call. Captain Deho set down his cup of Villani tea and looked at the elder with serious eyes. Because that's what good people do. They help when help is needed. The Krathan would call that weakness. The Krathan are wrong about many things. A week later, Ambassador Yunji arrived with a fleet of human ships. But unlike the Krathan fleet, these ships came in peace. They brought engineers, doctors, teachers, and diplomats. Their mission was to help, not to conquer. The ambassador was a wise woman who spoke many languages and understood different cultures. Her first meeting was with the surviving Villani leaders. The United Earth government wants to offer you a formal alliance, she announced. We will help protect your worlds and colonies. In return, we hope you will share your terraforming knowledge to help us build new homes for growing populations across the galaxy. Taman, now fully recovered from his injuries, spoke for the Villani. We accept your offer gratefully. But we have a condition. What condition? Ambassador Yunji asked. We want to learn about human culture and technology too. A real alliance means both sides sharing and learning from each other. Ambassador Yunji smiled. That's exactly what we hoped you would say. Over the next few months, Tahari Prime became the first joint human Villani colony. Human defensive platforms protected the planet from attack, while Villani terraforming technology helped nearby dead worlds bloom with life. Hana became the first Villani to study human engineering at Earth's universities. Minho designed new machines that combined human strength with Villani environmental wisdom. Jiho set up communication networks that connected human and Villani worlds across hundreds of light years. The alliance changed both species for the better. Humans learned to think more carefully about protecting the environment. Villani learned that sometimes peaceful people needed to be ready to defend themselves and others. News of the human-Villani alliance spread across the galaxy. Other peaceful species began to ask for human protection from aggressive empires like the Krathan. One by one, Earth formed new friendships with species that shared human values of freedom, cooperation, and protection of the innocent. Captain Deho and the UES Inchun's wrath became legends throughout the galaxy. The ship that had saved Tahari Prime went on to protect dozens of other worlds from conquest and slavery. But the most important change was in how the galaxy's bullies viewed their victims. Before humans arrived, aggressive species like the Krathan could attack peaceful colonies without fear of consequences. Now every would-be conqueror had to ask themselves a simple question. What if the humans find out? The answer to that question had become very clear at Tahari Prime. If humans found out about attacks on innocent people, they would come. They would bring ships that could defeat entire fleets. They would bring weapons that could stop any aggressor. Most importantly, they would bring the message that good people did not have to face evil alone. 6 months after the battle, Warlord Thex was transferred to Earth for trial. As his prison ship passed through the human home system, he looked out at the blue planet where these remarkable beings had been born. It was a beautiful world, covered in white clouds and blue oceans. It looked peaceful and gentle, nothing like the harsh gray worlds of the Krathan Empire. But Warlord Thex now knew that appearances could be deceiving. That peaceful blue world had produced the most formidable warriors in the galaxy, warriors who fought not for conquest or glory, but for justice and protection of the innocent. As his ship continued toward Earth, Warlord Thex made a decision that would shock the entire Krathan Empire. When he stood trial for his war crimes, he would tell his people the truth about humanity. He would warn them that the galaxy had changed, and that the age of unchallenged aggression was over. The humans had arrived, and they would never let evil triumph while good people suffered. The age of human protection had truly begun, and the galaxy would never be the same.